with Drew and Bo and, the Ethan Gruckmeyer kid coming in who was highly touted. They have Jackson Smolik, who is also, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Sorry if I screwed that up and butchered it. I'm not a linguist, but, it's a deep room. There's a new coordinator. Obviously, Drew's the guy going into the season. He's the guy going into spring ball. But I just think the dynamic with Bo and the way that he played last year when he got his chances, the type of juice that he brought, I'm just really intrigued to see how each of these guys benefit from the competition from the guy behind or next to, or however you want to lay it out. Because as we know, iron sharpens iron, and with no one really having a head up in terms of like the system and understanding it and things of that nature, it's going to be really cool to see who pushes who, what comes out of it. Do more packages come for Bo? How does the whole thing shake out at the end of it? And I think that's going to be a really cool, interesting thing for the program, and specifically that quarterback room, just in terms of the evolution and kind of what is bred from that competition at its core. Because at the end of the day, every day is an opportunity to compete, right? Whether a guy is going to be anointed or not, or however the dynamics work. And I'm not making any suggestions. I'm not making any assumptions about that thing. But, surface level, Drew's obviously the guy. As I've said, that's the only assumption that I'll make. But the ability to come in and push each other and, like I said, have a new coordinator, a new face, new voice, new flair come in, I'm really intrigued to see what comes out of that and what ultimately is implemented and leveraged on Saturdays on a consistent basis from that discovery. And to your point, that's what spring ball is about. It's about reps with young guys. It's about discovery. It's about trying things. It's a little bit of self-scout, and then ultimately you get the spring game, and it's this whole thing. But spring ball is about a lot of that. It's about development and depth. It's about development with now with the two new coordinators, development and at least the baseline of how you want to go into training camp, and then starting that crescendo and that build into week one. But that's where I'm looking.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, you and 100 million other people for sure.
Yeah,
I think we all are.
It's the obvious, but it's also I'm not looking at it in the obvious way. Like I think people really want it to be like this, like full-fledged battle. I don't think it's going to be that. But what I think it's going to be is a really cool behind closed doors dynamic that is going to breed some really good things out of all those guys, as long as they decide to stick it out and take the opportunity for what it is.
Right. And I think what comes with that and what comes out of that room that you're speaking of will only reflect amongst the rest of the team. Obviously there's competition everywhere, but there's no competition. And we talked about it with your first year and with Trace in those years of just seeing the energy come out of that room. When those guys, you guys are the leaders. Quarterback's the leader of the team, whether you realize it or not, whether you want to be or not. When the energy is spewing out of that room, it's only going to overflow into the offense as a whole, the O-line, RBs, tight ends, you name it. So, like as you said, it'll be fun to watch that high energy from everything that I've seen and reading about Coach Kodonecki. It's going to be kind of high octane. So, as I've said, we say it every week, that confidence, whether it's in the receivers, everyone has a lot to prove. And, no one's going to necessarily lose or get a job in spring ball. But as you said, it's a great baseline to attain some of that trust from the coaches and your teammates. But it's in the playbook, knowing where you're supposed to be. There's so many – I always tell people football is a very simple yet complex sport. The routes are simple, but as you know, what's the depth of this route that the coach wants it to be at this time? So far and so forth. So developing some of those little things will pay big dividends for the QBs, for the route runners, for everyone. And then defensively, getting to a point where you're comfortable enough to pin your ears back and just play. If we can get closer to that in spring ball, we're only, bounces forward come training camp, and then we're cooking with grease at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's ride this wave, man. So looking back at the season, specifically at the quarterback position, I want to start here. I think the positives with what came out of it. Like at the end of the day, Drew threw 26 touchdowns, like 2 interceptions, which is phenomenal. Took care of the football. I know it was a point of contention. People wanted to see him take more risks, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, you don't turn the football over. You put your team in a better position to win the ball game. You win the turnover margin battle, win the time possession battle. You're probably going to be in a good position come the fourth quarter to ultimately win the ball game. I think his operation from, and I've talked about this consistently, 15 yards down is really good. I think he's accurate. I think he distributes the ball. He has no problem taking checkdowns, which is a lot harder to coach than it is to coach somebody to start taking more risks.
Right.
Having that innate ability, that clock come into your brain, being like, hey, I got to get this ball out. I'll take 5 yards. I don't care. 4th and 2, I'll punt it, add 5 yards to the punt, whatever. The ability to have that in your game and ingrain that in your game is huge. Now, like I said, I'll kind of shift this over to and I think ultimately as a first-year starter, winning 10 ball games is great. Being able to, get a feel for what it really is. There's a big difference between being the flash in the pan guy that comes in and, there's really no downside because you don't got to answer it too much.
Right.
To being the guy that ultimately good, bad, high, low, super high, super low, you got to kind of ride the wave, be even keel. And whether you know or not, your reaction to your point is going to kind of reverberate throughout that locker room and probably drag into Monday and Tuesday's practice and, being able to pull guys out of that and stuff like that. I think all that's a great experience and a great learning curve for a guy. And no matter how much you talk about it, no matter how much it's preached, until you live it and do it, it's much, much more difficult than anybody can make it seem. So I thought there's obviously some things I thought he could have done a little bit better, being critical and having been in those shoes and understanding what goes into it. But I think ultimately, having talked to the kid a few times, getting a feel for his DNA and what he's made of, he definitely took it in the right manner, right? And he digested it, evaluated it, made the corrections, and I think is working on continuing to make those corrections and different angles and different ways to do it. And I'm excited to see his first opportunity in spring to be able to showcase those, right? Now, on the flip side of the coin, the one thing I was relatively highly critical of is just his ability to give these guys chances when he starts pushing the ball down the field vertically. Not necessarily take like errant shots, but be more accurate in the sense of like knowing where to place the football where it keeps it out of harm's way. And sometimes you have to have balls of steel and still put it in harm's way, but trust your guy to go make a play.
Right.
And I felt like, when he's throwing those vertical routes, when he's throwing goes, when he's throwing posts, a lot of times he either hit it or he missed by a pretty wide margin, 5-6 yards, whether overthrow, out of bounds, whatever. And those are the things that you can work to dial in. It's pretty much reps and feel. And he got those live game reps now, and now he just needs to continue to apply in practice and then go from there. But I think that's a big improvement he can make. And then secondly, I think just his attitude, like having more of that kill in him. When you saw it in the fourth quarter against Michigan when he's going and driving, like his shoulders are down, he's still making plays, but there's no real like urgency. There's no like chest out alpha dog that came out. Right. I think that his ability now, year under his belt, a lot of eyes, a lot of visibility, guys in the locker room believe in him. His ability to now kind of poke his chest out and show a little bit more than just that rosy cheek, just even keel kid, show a little bit of that kill. I think that'll pay dividends in big games for him. I think it'll pay dividends for the team, not just him. So, like, those are really my only two critiques of Drew. And obviously a new system, that could help with both of those things. And the onus, will fall on Drew to take advantage of the opportunities when they happen, but then also Coach Kaltenecki and finding ways to put him in the best positions to be successful. And that's the one thing I was critical of last year when they did start trying to push the ball vertically. There wasn't a lot of flavor, flash, or flair. They kept trying to do the same thing and expect different results. And it was, it was putting Drew in a tough spot. It was putting the receivers in a tough spot and ultimately cost the guy his job, I think, in some ways. So, really excited for where it develops. I think the good far outweighs the bad.
Yeah.
And it's just tough with all the media pressure, all the eyes, all the armchair quarterbacks throwing their opinions on it. But a lot of the success this year is going to ride on him, and he's battle tested now. And I'm excited to see what he shows during spring. And excited for him with the opportunity. I'm not going to make any bold predictions or anything like that, but he's got a fantastic opportunity ahead of him. And I think a lot of the corrections and the direction that he can make to his impact on the team is going to be from a making plays when the lights are the brightest, and then also just kind of an attitude change. Like let it hang, man. Go and compete. You're like you're playing pickup basketball. You know what I mean? I mean, we were in that basketball class. We almost got in like 4 or 5 fights. You, me, Jordan Smith. I almost punched Jordan Smith like 4 or 5 times. I think I did shove him one time pretty good because he was just being an ass. But it's just like a little bit of that. Like let it show, man. You know what I mean? You're, at the end of the day, you're playing a game. You're competing. You're competing with your guys. Like let it show. Who cares what the media says? If the guys trust you and they know it's coming from a right spot, like let it fly, man.
What a hang, man. You said it. And I mean, we talked about it towards the end of the season. I mean, the kid, this goes for any young player. You don't know what you don't know. And it's okay, like you said, coming in and scrap minutes and 5-star quarterback. And partially it's our fault, the media and the fans' fault in this microwave era of we want instant success. Oh, he played a little bit. It's 5-star. We should win a national championship. He should throw for 4,000 yards, all that hoopla. But that's not how it works. And we saw that. And as you said, it's going to be on him, this team, Coach Franklin, the coaching staff, and really the whole community as a whole to kind of, lay this thing out as far as this is what we have to do to help him. And then he has to take it on onus to take those critiques you said. Hopefully he's critiquing himself harder than anyone else is critiquing him, and then rep it. I mean, the one thing I'm big on when you talk about the deep ball accuracy and things of that nature is, and I mean, it's a part of football. Every team that I've been on, whether it's in the league, little league, high school, practice is so geared towards the offense. Sometimes I feel like, and we've said this before, things may look too pretty in practice. So when game time comes, it's not going to look like that. The throw may be there, but it's not going to be there in the way it looked in practice where it's just a spot throw. He runs under it. It's pretty. To your point, it's going to be sticky coverage, and you got to put the ball in opportune, space, and then the guys on the receiving end have to go and make plays. I know quarterback gets a lot of pressure, and the receivers got a lot of slack, tight ends. At the end of the day, everyone has to go out there and be a playmaker. The same way we talk about Drew puffing his chest out and being that guy, which is definitely needed. Everyone else has to do the same thing. They have to believe they're the best player to ever play the game down in and down out and to beat your guy across from you. And when that happens, the pressure will be eased off of Drew a little bit. The running backs we talk about, I think they are able to do that already. As young guys, they stepped on. We're able to do that.